Welcome back. So, what we're going to do today is basically we're going to go ahead and create an simulation of asynchronous communication with the server because we're coming to the point in time where we're going to have a server and we need to learn how to communicate with it. Now, the communication between our application and the server itself, it needs to be asynchronous, meaning that when a request towards the server is sent, the entire site loading doesn't need to wait for the response from that server to occur. Rather, instead, this will be based on a promise that a response shall arrive, but the site will continue loading without the actual data pulled from the server. This increases the loading. This actually severely decreases the loading time of the site, which makes the site function a lot faster. So, just some general logic of things. You send a request, your application sends a request towards a server. So your site is loading, and at a certain point in time, it needs to pull the list of accounts. And it continues loading without actually having that list of accounts, even though it sent a request for that list of accounts. But it only receives a promise that it will get them at a certain point in time in the future that we do not know, but we don't know when. But it will get them. And it continues loading everything else on the site without actually waiting for the response from the server. Once the response comes, it renders that part of the page. Anyway, so we can begin from the getAll method here. And we're just going to go ahead and scroll down. So we have modified our getAll public method here. First of all, it says here promise and then array account. So, okay. Basically, promise is an object here that is used to make asynchronous programming easier. The general logic of a promise is that we basically promise that a function will execute at some future point in time, as I said, but we don't know when. This enables us to define basically what will happen if the function executes successfully or if it fails. Anyway, you have the return here, and in return it says promise.resolve. Now resolve, what that does is basically just states that the fetching of the accounts has been successful. Okay, so it's a method that's going to fetch this and that's going to state within the promise, hey, I have successfully managed to retrieve the accounts, and that promise will be sent over when this function is called. So whatever is in need of these accounts will see, okay, I have a promise. It has succeeded in pulling it, but it's going to deliver them at some future point in time. I can continue on loading the site. Now this is all that was changed here, really. Just this account, just this function, just this method. And if we go back to the app component TS, quite a bit of things have been changed here, but nothing added up there that we've done. Okay, so we're going to go over them one by one. So first of all, you have a private array accounts. Since we are asynchronously initializing this array, so accounts array, we need to have it here and we need to make it empty. So, well, as you can see, it's completely empty. There's nothing in it, so that it is available for future use, so that we can populate it at a later point in time. Anyway, if we go down, these two lines have been added here. So you have a variable promise, and this is going to take the contents of the getAll method. So through this logic, we are calling the getAll method. So yep, this represents the current instance account service. That's where the getAll method is basically located, and getAll is then called and a promise is delivered. And then down below you have promise.then, and here we're going to be actually fetching the data itself and storing it. Now, what happens here is that you have a new form of, you have a, not a new form, you have a new function. You have a new method, but promise then is also a method. So then is also a method which as the first parameter basically takes a function. So this entire thing, this is one single parameter. And within the confines of this function, we will define what will happen. And we can also add an additional argument here to define what will happen in case it fails as well. But we're not going to do that now. We're just going to define what happens if it succeeds. And basically, it passes to the, you have, this is called, this here, this entire thing, it's kind of, well, it's not difficult to understand, but it's a little bit new. Let me put it like that. So accounts, and then you have this equal greater than sign, which is basically an arrow. You have this dot accounts equals accounts. So this function is written, this is, all of this is actually a function. So what I'm selecting now is a function. So this is a new type, a new syntax of a function. It's called a lambda function, or as it is referred to, it has arrow syntax, as it is literally arrow syntax. You have like an arrow here, and to the left of the arrow, you have the parameters that the function will receive. And to the right of the arrow, you have the body of the function. So all of this is just the body of the function. So I don't know, you have some parameter, accounts, and then you have this referring to the current instance of the private variable accounts, in which we intend to store all of the data that we have retrieved. So therefore, we initialize private variable accounts to the accounts here. Simple as that. So this is initialized to this, and this is the parameter of the function. So no big deal, but it's a little bit difficult to adjust and get used to it. Okay, so now that's well, before I actually move on, you have underline accounts here, underline accounts. This is the array. So all the accounts that we are fetching, we're going to be storing in this array. That is how we are initializing this empty array. Anyway, gonna bid you farewell here, and we're gonna go ahead and continue in the follow-up.